Some more thoughts on our top story now. In the British News magazine that's wheeled out some more Russia doom-mongering with articles speculating that President Putin is planning to invade the Baltics and the effects of propaganda machines. That's us, by the way. If you look closely, we're there. Let's bring in the Spectator's magazine's deputy editor, Freddie Gray's joining us now live. Hi there, Freddie. Nice to see you today. Thanks for making the time to be with us. Makes good reading, makes good viewership too, brings in the figures, doesn't it? Is that why you've done it? Putin's popular to have on the front cover. That's why you've done it, yeah?
Well, I think our readers are very interested in Putin. I think the Spectator's in the rare and lucky position of not being Russophobic, but also not really being Russophilic. So I think we've got two articles in this issue that look at the matter of Putin, the matter of the Baltic states, and also Syria, and generally the Western hysteria towards Russia, which we in the office all feel is very unhelpful to the West. So I think it's obviously a good selling subject for us, but that doesn't mean we're covering it in a biased way.
No, you know, in fairness, you've got two reports, there two different views on it, one from Paul Wood and one from Mr. Liddell. Why do you think then, okay, you're not doing this, but why do you think other UK media certainly appears to? You just look at the headlines for some of the red tops. It's all Russia doom and gloom. The warships now going down towards the Mediterranean. For instance, there's no other way it can actually really get there. That's being seen as some huge awful thing at the moment. Why is this at the moment?
Well, I think there's a sort of hysteria about Russia, which I think is some deep psychic need for an enemy, which Putin is filling very neatly for us at the moment. And I think a lot of it might be to do with the American election. You know, you've got Hillary Clinton's going to come in very soon, it looks like. And I think, you know, she's very much ratcheting up the aggression against Putin. And so you're seeing a sort of game of chicken emerging in which certainly American hawks and British hawks are getting very hysterical. Theresa May said some slightly hysterical things. And you're seeing a sort of squaring off that is potentially very, very dangerous. Yeah,
I mean, Theresa May, for instance, she was talking about RT. I think we've got a quote we can put on the screen here. Saying that RT disseminates truthful information well, this is what Rod Little said about RT. He said it disseminates truthful information at the same time accusing us of not always giving balance or right to reply, but asked the same question of the BBC, i.e. is impartiality in short supply at the broadcast of them. But we go thinking about what Theresa May said. She said, a quote from her more broadly, we want to make sure that misinformation is not being spread. I'm thinking of what happened last week. Nat West, part of RBS, turned around and said that we're closing RT UK's bank accounts. Now, officially, the government's got nothing to do with that, but why is Theresa May butting in on it then, saying what she just said?
Well, I think that's the great danger. I mean, we're so afraid of these threats to our free society from the East that we're actually in danger of not being a free society ourselves. I mean, as Rod said in his piece, we never shut down Pravda. I mean, I think you do spread propaganda on this channel, I'm sure you do, but I think we're a free society and we should allow you to do it.
And when we can, we give a right to reply. As you're coming sitting here, you could say what you like today, you know. OK, so...
I know, you're very good at your propaganda.
It's nice to have the compliment, sir. So where's this going to go now, do you think, in Britain? Is it going to get worse? You think when the election's over, it'll improve, or is it just going to continue to ramp up?
Well, I think Hillary Clinton has really ratcheted up the rhetoric so much that there is going to be some kind of showdown over a no-fly zone in Syria. And that's a very frightening prospect. It's a very frightening game of chicken. And I think the more people that can say how hysterical we're being in the West, the better. And that's what we were trying to do this week in the Spectator.
There was also that story about the so-called Russian hacking of the DNC website, etc., and some papers are reporting that we had, in fact, published it first, tweeted it first. In fact, the truth was it was already originally on the WikiLeaks website. We picked it up, we tweeted it, and then WikiLeaks tweeted it again. But that's only when people noticed. Again, people jumping to complete conclusions that we're somehow some sort of that WikiLeaks is a mouthpiece somehow for Russia, etc., that we're involved in it. Again, people jumping to conclusions, making huge claims when in fact they're not at all in any shape or form true. In fact, even RT, our editor-in-chief, talking about taking legal action. Why are people doing this?
Well, I think the Democrats are very, very keen to pin the blame on Russia because obviously these WikiLeaks are embarrassing to the Democrats. So if they can say, you know, nobody should be talking about this, we're giving, you know, the enemy an advantage, then obviously that's advantageous to them. I mean, as for the cybersecurity issue, in as much as I can tell, there does seem to be quite a lot of activity coming from Russia, but we just don't know. And so for this sort of conclusive idea that the Russian government are meddling in the American election is again hysterical, I think.
Yeah, there was a mention there. The top of Paul Wood's piece starts with worries in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, maybe about some fictional invasion and how it will all kick off in the future. Is this a real worry? What's driving this? In reality,
well, I think there are concerns. There are concerns about. I mean, Russia always says that they're merely exercises or that they're responses to NATO attacks, but there are clearly worries in the Baltic states, and I'm not sure all of them are entirely hysterical. So I think that is an issue to take seriously, and we should be aware of the fact that Putin is going to advance Russia's national interest, and that may mean some sort of confrontation in Eastern Europe in the future. That's being realistic. I don't think that's being hysterical.
But of course, as has been pointed out time and time again, what Russia's doing is well and truly within its own borders, and actually is nowhere near the scale or size of what's happening with NATO forces in some of these countries at the moment.
Yes, but has Russia got 3 rifle divisions in just outside Lithuania now? Is that true or not?
I actually am not totally sure about that answer. I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know. NATO's got their divisions there too. I know that.
Well, yes. I mean, this is again. It becomes this sort of game of we're doing it. No, you're doing it. No, we're doing it, and it becomes chicken, as I say.
So what's going to give? Do you think? What's going to give? 6 months hence, when there's a new president there, is it going to get worse or better under a US president, whoever it is?
Well, we in the West will have to hope that Putin's going to give, but it's silly on our part to provoke him and try and prompt him into showing that he means it. In
the article here, Rod Little says that's exactly what's happening. Russia's constantly being prodded like a spring, as Putin said before. You prod a spring too much, you wind it up too much, eventually it'll snap back.
Yes. Well, and I think, he is winning. He's winning the information war because it seems his propaganda is rather superior to ours. And we seem to be losing out on many fronts in this so-called information war and in this ratcheting up of a sort of mystical, quiet Cold War.
Have you got any thoughts about the apparent double standards we're talking about at the moment, certainly this week particularly, about what's happening in Aleppo and what Russia's trying to do there to counter the terrorism, and what's happening in Mosul, where there are similar operations happening? Russia hasn't got much to do with that, but it seems to be double standards. America, for instance, is saying what's happening in Mosul is okay, but what's happening in Aleppo is not. Why is that? It's the same kind of thing.
Well, I think there's double standards in Yemen too. I mean, we don't really speak up. Our government certainly doesn't speak up as much about what's happening in Yemen because that's Saudi Arabia, which of course is an ally of ours. So yes, there are huge double standards in Western media. There's huge double standards in Eastern media, I'm sure, and even on such an honest channel as Russia Today. But I think the problem is that we aren't as aware of our double standards, and perhaps that's something we need to.
Well, Freddie, it's been good to talk to you. Freddie Gray, Deputy Editor of the Spectator magazine. Thanks for coming on. And as I say, you've got to read all the sources and material out there as best we can and draw our own conclusions. And your publication helps, just like ours does. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.